3 people facing federal assault charges after prosecutors say they attacked
a Turning Point USA reporter during an anti-ICE protest Saturday. It was in Minneapolis.
Clips circulating online show the moment when things turn violent, but 2 witnesses I spoke to say it's missing important context.
Turning Point USA has just been caught in a major scam at the federal building. Turning Point USA is once again humiliated by their own video evidence. And listen, if you've ever seen a Turning Point USA clip, you've seen them all. A reporter or a Turning Point USA rep uses a microphone like a weapon, wags it in everyone's faces, pokes at grieving community members until somebody finally snaps, and then they sprint to the nearest cop or the nearest courtroom and they cry victim. And usually that footage is captured somewhere on Twitter, Truth Social, YouTube. You know, it's a scene we've watched 1,000 times, but this time there's a little twist. Our intrepid agitator may or may not have met the pavement exactly where she spent 20 minutes asking to be met. And look, I'm not saying there's a manual in the Turning Point USA basement titled How to Get Your Lunch Money Taken, but it's not every day you see a full-blown federal lawsuit and a Department of Justice press release filed over a pair of broken Warby Parkers.
Savanah Hernandez, of course, was assaulted in Minnesota a couple days ago. I talked to Cash Patel on the way down here, and I said, I assume that we're doing something here. And he said, yes, we've had multiple agents on the ground. We've already talked to Savanah. We're going to use the video to try to go after the people who assaulted her.
The absurdity here is reaching levels we didn't think were possible. But again, these are the weirdest times ever. And the specifics of this legal filing, they're telling a story that the frontline cameras conveniently missed. And before we dive into this brutal attack, which looks more like a community theater production, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I'm Lauren Paritra. Willa Paritra is on the couch. We've had a long day. And we're trying to keep the internet slightly less delusional. And your support, it helps us keep the lights on while we stare at these absurd court documents and absurd people. So you don't have to.
They want to vilify Turning Point USA because they have conservative beliefs. I mean, they attack journalists. Well, they also attack sworn law enforcement officers.
Now, stay with me. To understand why this latest drama is so perfectly on script, we have to look at the pattern. We've seen Erica Kirk and her cohort play this exact game before. You go into a space where you know people aren't exactly fans of you. Let's call it enthusiastic misinformation land. And you just kind of wait there. You hover around, you poke and prod, a lot of poking, heavy on the prodding. And it's a specific type of performance art where the goal isn't really like, they're not trying to report the news. They want to become news.
This is Savanah Hernandez in Columbus, Ohio, doing an investigation into potential fraud in the trucking industry. It has led us to, of course, Somali neighborhoods. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, we have been on the road for the last 3 hours. And the amount of Somali drivers that have either been driving the wrong way, that we've almost crashed into, or who are driving cars that are so decrepit that literal pieces of the car are falling off is crazy. I'm just kind of baffled at how bad the driving is here.
When another detail shows up in the legal world, they call it being provoked. But in the influencer world, they're just, doing another content day out in the quad. Again, this story alone would be strange, but it gets stranger. Keep that in mind for a second, because while people are arguing about who pushed this woman, they're missing the actual timeline of how these clips get manufactured. We're talking about a group of people who carry cameras like shields, waiting for the exact millisecond somebody snaps and loses their cool.
After we had separated her from Chris and his family, she wanted to go back. The impression that I've gotten, because I've watched the footage a bunch of times now, is that both of them kind of wanted to fight.
It's frustrating to be saving somebody from an assault who doesn't want you to be saving them from an assault.
And today's episode is brought to you by Cozy Earth. I do everything from home: research, write, edit, record, check the ceiling for Stephen Miller scurrying across it. And I realized that the outfit I was doing all that in deserved to be better. Their jogger sets are made from viscose and bamboo, and I cannot explain the softness except to say I've reached for mine every single day since it arrived. Makes me feel put together enough that I don't feel like a person who just gave up altogether. Comfortable enough that I never want to take it off. And I wear it for morning, night, errands, filming, couch. It just goes on. And they have clogs that are real. They're cushioned, supportive, slip on. I've worn them to take Willa potty town. I've worn them to take Willa for a spin. all the time. And everything on Cozy Earth comes with a 100-night trial and a 10-year warranty. Head over to cozyearth.com and use my code Lauren, that's LOREN, for 20% off. And if you see a post-purchase survey, tell them you heard about it right here on LPTV. So here's the interesting part. Savanah Hernandez, the resident Frontlines reporter for Turning Point USA, just officially sued a family over a scuffle at an anti-ICE protest in Minnesota.
Yeah, the feds are getting involved. The thing is, with this kind of incident, there's plenty of video, not just hers, but others there, that the feds can look at and say, listen, this was a situation where there was physical contact with this young woman. She felt physically threatened.
These indictments are good, but in your view, do they go far enough?
Now, if you listen to her side, she was a war correspondent. She basically just got back from a war-torn nation, and she was besieged by a mob. But the lawsuit reveals something hilariously specific. She claims she has a concussion and emotional trauma from being shoved. But remember the detail you'll just hold on to? The lawsuit admits she only went to an urgent care for what she's calling a brutal federal level assault. The story is that this family, the Ostroushkos, allegedly went after her. But the video shows a reporter following a girl, blowing a whistle, getting in her personal space, and essentially waiting for the moment the physics of a protest turn into a lawsuit. And listen, I've been to many a protest. There's been periods of time where I've protested for 60, 90 consecutive days. I've seen a lot of shit. I've also been to coalition offices where organizers, the people who organize these movements and mass demonstrations, do their work. And almost, I think every one I've been to has made us pledge to stay nonviolent. So listen, pushing, shoving, it's not it. Okay, I'll say that straight up. We shouldn't do that. And at the same time, is this a little bit blown out of proportion? It's a yes for me. Chris Ostroushko shoved her from behind. Chris shouldn't have done that. And also, the way this is being framed as some high-level federal conspiracy is a very interesting choice. So here's where it really gets me. While Turning Point USA is clutching their pearls over some broken glasses, over some broken department store glasses, we're talking about this happening at an anti-ICE protest. And when we look at the grand scheme of things, this was a scuffle between private citizens. Meanwhile, what has the state been doing to private citizens? I'll let you guys think on that one for a second. While all this went down, we are talking about an agency that literally tears families apart, puts children in cages. That is systemic, state-sanctioned violence. But notice how nobody in the mainstream calls that unhinged or dangerous. It's funny how that phrase, violence isn't the answer, only seems to come out of the woodwork the second anyone fights back against oppression. I saw a quote earlier today on Pig Social, Pretty Informed Girls, and it was a quote that said something along these lines: the second oppressed people or community members start fighting back, in this case it was community members, when the state is crushing people, it's policy, she deserved to get pew-pewed to death, they should have followed the law. But when a Turning Point USA reporter is poking people with a camera until they snap, it's a different kind of word that starts with A and rhymes with mamalt.
You know, I don't feel bad for them at all. Actions have consequences.
But again, when a community says enough, stop kidnapping our neighbors, we don't want to hear another mother scream in agony as she's ripped away from her children or vice versa. And they start pushing back against the, people cheerleading for their destruction. Suddenly everyone's a pacifist. It's really interesting how that works. The real trauma here, let's just ground in this as we close out. The real trauma here isn't a scuffle at the federal building. It's what happens inside those very federal buildings. If you think dragging a family into a court over a protest scuffle is the peak of absurdity, just wait until the discovery phase. I'm sure those internal emails about getting the shot and whatever they've probably been saying on text messages at Turning Point USA are going to be a fun read. Stick around. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you want more. Let us know in the comments what you want more of. Let's keep digging in. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Help us hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Stay skeptical. Families belong together. We're not going anywhere. We'll be back with more.